The House That Waited. Chapter 1. Whispers on Wexler Street. At the far end of Wexler Street, where the road began to crumble into dirt and weeds pressed stubbornly through cracked asphalt, stood the house. No one could recall its construction. The oldest residents insisted it had always been there, though they never said this with much conviction. Their eyes would flicker away, as though avoiding the weight of their own words. It was a tall, narrow house, with weather-beaten boards and a porch that sagged like an exhausted sigh. The chimneys leaned together at odd angles, like bent fingers, and the roof carried the heaviness of years that never seemed to pass. Trees crowded in close, their branches scraping across the siding with each gust of wind, as though eager to touch it. In summer, the shadows seemed to cling to the eaves long after sunset. In winter, snow refused to settle on the roof, sliding off as if the structure itself rejected the burden. Children made a game of running up the front steps to slap the door before fleeing back down the street, shrieking with nervous laughter. Few dared to linger more than a moment, for even in daylight the house had a presence. Its windows, tall and narrow, reflected the sky in shades darker than the day around them. If you stared too long, you could convince yourself something shifted just beyond the glass, as if the house blinked. "Don't look at it too long," old Mrs. Whitcomb would warn the children's school, shaking her cane in their direction. She lived in the nearest house, and from her bedroom window she claimed to hear things at night. Low murmurs like voices caught between the walls. "It'll notice you if you stare." Her warnings only added fuel to the children's dares. They whispered stories of pale figures pressed against the upstairs windows, of the smell of smoke that lingered in the air, though no fire had ever burned there. Some claimed to hear faint music if they stood by the iron gate at night, a lilting tune, like a lullaby played on broken strings. The adults pretended not to notice the house at all. They passed it quickly on their way into town, heads bent, conversations carefully steered elsewhere. Yet even they could not deny the disappearances. A traveler here, a drunkard there, a boy who wandered too close one autumn night and never came home. There was never a trace, only whispers. Still, the house stood silent, waiting. And in the long stretch of summer evenings, when dusk bled slowly into night, neighbors swore they saw a flicker of light in the upstairs window. A candle's glow, here for an instant, gone the next. Some claimed it was a reflection, a trick of tired eyes. Others turned away before the thought could take hold. If the house was empty, who carried the flame? Wexler Street learned to live with its shadow. The house became a fact, like the sagging trees or the bend in the road. But beneath the surface of the town's daily rhythm, it lingered. An ache, an itch, a hum no one could quite silence. For the house was patient, and patience is a dangerous thing. Chapter 2. The Dare. It began, as most foolish things do, with a boast. 3 teenagers lounged on the curb outside a corner store one muggy August evening, the kind of night when the air felt thick and heavy with the promise of rain. They were restless, too old for childish games, too young to silence the gnawing hunger for proving themselves. "You wouldn't last 5 minutes inside," said Marcus, tall and wiry, with a smirk sharp enough to cut. He tossed a stone into the street, where it skittered against the broken pavement. "I'd last longer than you," retorted Claire. She crossed her arms and met his grin with a glare. Her voice carried that edge between defiance and doubt, the line every dare balances on. Tom shuffled his sneakers nervously. "Nobody lasts in there. That's the point. My cousin said his friend went in once and—" "Your cousin's friend probably made it up." Marcus waved him off. "Everyone's got some story, but nobody's ever proven anything. That's what makes it lame. Claire raised an eyebrow. So what? You want proof? Go ahead. Door's wide open, isn't it? Marcus's grin faltered for half a second, just long enough for Claire to notice. He straightened, brushing dust from his jeans. Fine, I will. But I'm not going in alone. You two are coming too. Tom's stomach lurched. What if Mrs. Whitcomb sees us? She'll tell my mom. Mrs. Whitcomb's probably asleep. And even if she isn't, she won't come out. She never leaves that window of hers. The house loomed at the end of Wexler Street, its silhouette a jagged shadow against the bruised sky. From where they stood, it looked almost watchful, as though it had overheard every word of their argument. By the time the three reached the rusted gate, Tom's mouth was dry. Claire pushed it open with a squeal of hinges, and the sound seemed too loud in the thick air. The overgrown yard was littered with fallen branches, weeds taller than Tom's knees. The porch steps sagged under Marcus's weight as he swaggered forward. See? Marcus said, though his voice was lower now, cautious. Nothing to it. Claire stepped up beside him. She tilted her chin defiantly at the door, its paint curled and cracked like old bark. Ladies first? Not a chance, Marcus muttered, but his hand was already reaching for the knob. It turned far too easily. The door swung inward with a groan that vibrated in their bones. Warm air spilled out, smelling faintly of polish and candle wax, though no light shone from within. Tom whispered, "It's waiting for us." Neither Marcus nor Claire laughed, and with a quick glance between them, one last silent challenge, they crossed the threshold together. Chapter 3. The First Night. The air inside was warmer than it should have been. Not stale, not heavy with dust or mold, but warm, like the lingering heat of a hearth fire that had burned out hours ago. The floorboards creaked underfoot, though not with the frailty of rot. It was more like a sigh, deep and slow, as if the house were adjusting to new company. Tom lingered on the threshold, his sneakers barely inside. We shouldn't be here." His whisper seemed too loud in the vast quiet. Marcus glanced back at him. "Relax, it's just wood and nails." But his voice lacked its usual swagger. He too was looking around uneasily. The entry hall stretched longer than it had appeared from outside, lined with faded wallpaper patterned in vines that twisted upward. The vines seemed almost to shift in the lamplight, their curling leaves caught mid-motion. Claire stepped forward first. Her shoes clicked softly on the polished wood floor. She brushed her hand along the banister of the staircase, surprised at the smoothness of the rail. "There's no dust," she murmured. Tom's eyes darted everywhere at once. That's not possible. Nobody lives here." "Maybe somebody does," Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced. The parlor opened to their left. Chairs were arranged neatly around a small table, as though waiting for a conversation to begin. A clock on the mantel ticked steadily, each sound sharp in the silence. Claire ran her finger along its brass edge. Not a speck of dust clung to her fingertip. Marcus gave a forced chuckle. "Guess the ghosts are tidy." But as he spoke, a floorboard upstairs gave a long, slow creak. All three froze. Tom's breath hitched. "Did you—" "Old houses make noise," Marcus cut in quickly. Too quickly. Claire's eyes narrowed. "Old houses don't polish the furniture or keep the clocks wound." They stood in silence, listening. The tick of the clock seemed to grow louder, beating in time with their hearts. Somewhere deeper in the house, something settled or shifted. The sound echoed like footsteps in another room. 5 minutes, Marcus said, his jaw tight. We stay 5 minutes, and then we go. Nobody can say we chickened out. Fine, Claire folded her arms, but we're not standing in the hall like cowards. Let's look around. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Claire had already stepped deeper into the parlor. Tom, pale and hesitant, followed, unwilling to be left alone. The parlor smelled faintly of beeswax, the kind used for polishing wood. The chair's cushions were firm beneath their tentative touch, the fabric free of wear. A painting hung above the mantel, a dark forest path winding into shadows. The longer they stared at it, the less certain they were of where the path ended. Claire tilted her head. It almost looks like it's moving. Tom's voice was small. Maybe it is. Before Marcus could scoff, the floorboard above them creaked again. Slower this time, closer to the stairs. Claire's eyes flicked toward the ceiling. I thought you said it was just the house settling. Marcus swallowed, his throat tight. Yeah, that's what I said. But his eyes never left the staircase, and for the first time that evening, the smirk slipped from his face entirely. The house was no longer just watching. It was listening. Chapter 4. A guest that stayed too long. The sound from upstairs faded into silence, but the three teenagers remained rooted to the parlor floor, ears straining for the next creak. When none came, the quiet seemed even heavier. The tick of the clock beat like a pulse, impossibly steady, impossibly loud. Claire broke the silence first. Someone's here. Tom's eyes widened. Don't say that. I mean it. Someone's upstairs. That door was unlocked, the air's warm, everything's clean. Somebody lives here. Then where are they? Marcus shot back, though his voice cracked just slightly at the end. And why would they be hiding? As if in answer, a faint vibration rippled through the floorboards beneath their feet. Not a step, not quite. More like the slow exhale of something buried deep below. Tom clutched his arms tight to his chest. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Claire's gaze slid back to the mantel. The painting above the fireplace seemed different somehow. She blinked hard, leaning closer. The path was darker now, the shadows deeper. She could have sworn the crooked tree at the edge of the path hadn't been there before. Marcus noticed her stare. What? The painting, Claire said, her voice distant. It's changing. Marcus forced the laugh, though sweat beaded at his temple. Old paint cracks, that's all. But even as he said it, his eyes flicked back uneasily. From the hall, the clock chimed. One sharp note, then silence. Marcus frowned. That's not the hour. No, it's not. Her words hung in the air, heavy and unfinished. Tom's eyes wandered to the bookshelves tucked against the far wall. At first, he thought the spines were blank, but as he leaned closer, faint lettering emerged embossed in flaking gold. Titles in no language he recognized, curving symbols that shifted when he tried to follow them. He stepped back quickly, his skin crawling. Maybe we should leave, he said, louder now, his fear pressing against the edges of panic. Marcus turned toward the front door, eager to agree, when he froze. The door was gone. In its place stretched another hallway, narrow and dim, lined with doors on either side. The wallpaper was the same as before, ivy curling upward, its leaves pale and curling, but the hall had not been there when they entered. Tom's throat closed. Where's the door? Claire's voice was almost calm, though her face had drained of color. It moved. Marcus shook his head hard, backing away from the hall. No, that's impossible. Doors don't just... But before he could finish, a low, dragging sound echoed from somewhere deep within the house. A sound like fabric sliding across wood, slow, patient, nearer with every heartbeat. Tom clamped his hands over his ears. It wants us here. That's why the door's gone. It's not going to let us leave. Claire's gaze flicked between her friends. Her jaw tightened. Then we don't wait for it to come to us. We go upstairs, we see what's there, maybe there's another way out. Neither boy wanted to agree, but the steady scrape from the unseen depths left no choice. Together, with breaths held and nerves stretched thin, they turned toward the staircase. The air seemed warmer there, each step cloaked in a strange hum that trembled faintly against their bones. And as they began to climb, unseen eyes followed, watching, remembering. For the house knew this path well. Others had walked it before, and not all had returned.
Chapter 5. The Upstairs Halls. The staircase groaned beneath their weight, but not in protest. The sound was too measured, too deliberate, each step sighing like a drawn-out breath. The banister felt warm under their palms, as though touched by hands only moments before. Claire went first, her shoulders squared, her chin lifted. Behind her, Marcus kept glancing over his shoulder, as though expecting the vanished front door to reappear. Tom lingered last, clutching the rail with white knuckles, his every breath shallow. The upstairs landing stretched wider than it had any right to. From below, the house looked narrow, compressed between its leaning trees. But here, the hallway unfurled in both directions, lined with closed doors that hadn't been visible from outside. The wallpaper was the same pale green, the ivy curling up toward the ceiling. Only now, in the dim light, the leaves looked sharper, their edges almost thorn-like. Claire whispered, "There shouldn't be this many rooms." Marcus tried to keep his tone steady. "It's just an old house. Walls don't match up sometimes, that's all." But even he couldn't ignore the way the hallway seemed to lean slightly, as though it curved toward some invisible center. They approached the nearest door. Claire's hand hesitated at the knob before she pushed it open. The room beyond was a bedroom. Simple. Too simple. The bed was neatly made with white sheets, so crisp they might never have been slept in. A chair waited by the window, angled just enough to suggest someone had been sitting there, watching the street below. The curtains swayed faintly, though the window was shut tight. Tom stepped closer. On the bedside table rested a small object, a hairbrush, its bristles bent with use. Blonde strands clung to it, glinting in the dim light. "There was someone here," he whispered. Claire touched the chair's armrest. It was still warm. Marcus's jaw tightened. "They left, that's all. They left." But the words fell flat. No one moved to sit on the bed, though it looked inviting in its perfection. The air felt wrong, too still, too staged, like a photograph of a room rather than a room itself. They backed out and shut the door. The next door opened to a study. A desk stood in the center, covered with yellowed papers and open books. The ink was fresh, though the handwriting twisted in sharp angles none of them could decipher. On the floor sat a half-burned candle, the wax hardened into a pool around its base. The smell of smoke clung faintly to the air. Claire reached for one of the papers. The letters shifted under her eyes, rearranging themselves as though they knew she was looking at them. She dropped it quickly, her pulse hammering. "I don't like this," Tom said again, his voice breaking. Neither of the others argued. They shut the study and turned to the hall again. At the far end, a single door stood half open. Unlike the others, no light slipped through the crack. Darkness pooled there, heavy and unmoving. Claire swallowed hard. Maybe that's the way out? Marcus shook his head. No, no way. But even as he said it, the clock downstairs chimed again. One sharp note, just as before, echoing up through the boards. The sound seemed to push them forward, nudging them toward the waiting door. None of them wanted to lead, but the silence behind them was worse than the dark ahead. Together, step by slow step, they moved toward the open door. And as they neared, the shadows inside seemed to lean forward, eager, as though the room itself had been holding its breath.
Chapter 6. The Door That Waited. The open door yawned like a wound at the end of the hall. No light spilled from it, no reflection glimmered in its depths. It was a blackness thicker than night, a shadow with weight. Claire was the first to step forward. Her jaw was set, though the tremor in her hand betrayed her. Marcus followed reluctantly, every muscle in his shoulders tight. Tom lagged behind, dragging his feet as if slowing himself might delay the inevitable. When Claire pushed the door wider, the hinges gave a long, shuddering groan, as though reluctant to move. The sound echoed through the hall, reverberating in their bones. The room beyond was empty, or at least it appeared to be at first. 4 walls, a wooden floor, no windows. But the air was dense, pressing against their skin, thick with the scent of earth and old iron. Marcus squinted. There's nothing here. Then why is it so dark? Tom's voice was barely a whisper. They stepped inside. The floor felt solid beneath their feet, but every sound they made seemed swallowed up before it reached the walls. The door creaked behind them, shifting ever so slightly closer to shut. "Don't let it close," Claire said sharply, spinning toward Marcus. "I'm not—" But he froze. On the far wall, faint markings glimmered in the dark. At first, they looked like scratches, long gouges carved into the plaster. But as their eyes adjusted, the scratches resolved into words, dozens of them. Names. Claire leaned closer, her stomach twisting. Some were carved deep, letters jagged and frantic. Others were faint, as though traced by trembling hands. She read the nearest aloud, her voice cracking. Daniel, Sarah, Judith. Tom staggered backward, nearly tripping. Those are people, real people. They're— "Don't," Claire cut in, though she couldn't tear her eyes away from the wall. Marcus's gaze fell lower, to the floorboards beneath the names. There were darker stains there, faint but unmistakable, sunk deep into the wood. His mouth went dry. This isn't just a room." As if in answer, the door slammed shut behind them. The sound was deafening, a gunshot of wood on wood. Tom cried out, lunging for the handle. He twisted, pulled, shoved. Nothing. The knob didn't budge. Claire's chest heaved. The air felt thicker now, cloying. She stumbled back, her hand brushing against fresh gouges on the wall, scratches that hadn't been there moments before. Marcus swore under his breath, pounding on the door. "Open, damn it, open!" The walls seemed to pulse faintly, like the rhythm of a hidden heartbeat. From somewhere beneath the floor, a low hum began to rise. It vibrated through the boards, up into their shoes, into their bones. Claire pressed himself into the corner, his eyes wide and unblinking. "It doesn't want us to leave. It never wanted us to leave." Claire grabbed his arm, trying to steady him, though her own knees trembled. Don't say that." But deep down, she knew he was right. And then, as suddenly as it had slammed, the door creaked open again. It swung inward slowly, almost politely, revealing the hallway beyond. Marcus froze, his fists still raised to pound.
What the hell? Claire stared, her pulse thundering. It let us out. Tom shook his head violently. No, it didn't. It showed us. That's different. For a long, awful moment, none of them moved. The hall beyond lay empty, silent, waiting. Finally, Claire took a shaky breath. We keep moving. We don't stay in one place. Not again. And without waiting for agreement, she stepped back into the hall. The others followed, though every instinct screamed against it. The house had tested them. It had shown them a glimpse of its history, of its appetite. And it had opened the door not out of mercy, but because it wasn't finished with them yet.
Chapter 7. The Watcher in the Window. From her bedroom window across the street, Mrs. Whitcomb watched the house with the same patience she had kept for nearly 60 years. Her rocking chair creaked softly as she leaned forward, the candlelight behind her flickering against lace curtains. She had seen the three children earlier, Marcus strutting, Claire sharp-eyed, Tom trailing nervously. She knew the look of a dare when she saw it. Youth carried the same arrogance from one generation to the next. None of them ever believed the stories until it was far too late. Her husband, God rest him, had once gone into that house himself, years before they were wed. He never spoke of what he saw, not in all the decades they shared, but she remembered how his hands shook when he came out, how his hair had turned gray at the temples within a month. She never pressed him. Some truths were poison when spoken aloud. Tonight, the house seemed restless, its silhouette pressed darker against the sky, its windows glimmering faintly like eyes catching a distant flame. She thought she saw a shift in the upstairs curtains, just a twitch, a flutter too deliberate for wind. Her cat, a soot-colored thing with torn ears, paced along the windowsill, tail lashing. It hissed once at the house before leaping down and disappearing beneath the bed. Mrs. Whitcomb sighed. "You're wiser than they are," she muttered. The clock on her wall ticked softly. She glanced at it. 8 minutes since the children entered. 8 minutes too long. Her memory wandered back. How many times had she seen it? A traveling salesman with a suitcase? A runaway girl clutching a doll? 2 drunk men laughing too loudly as they staggered up the porch. They never came out. Not in daylight, not at all. And yet, the house never bulged with the weight of them. It absorbed, it softened, it swallowed. She had reported it once, when she was younger, full of fire and certainty. The constable laughed, patted her hand, and said the missing were just that, missing. People ran, people strayed. The world was wide. Why look to a single house for blame? But she knew better. She knew the hum that carried across the street at night, that low vibration that rattled her teacups and set her dreams on edge. She knew the way the windows sometimes reflected not the street, but the faces pressed against them from inside, faces she had never seen alive. And now she saw movement again, a flicker of shadow across the upstairs landing, too tall to be Claire, too broad to be Marcus, too still to be Tom. Her hand tightened on the curtain's edge. "Not again," she whispered. "Not again." But the house had no mercy for her wishes. It never had. Across the street, the upstairs window flared briefly with light. Just a spark, like a candle catching wick. In its glow, she saw the outlines of 4 figures, not 3.
Chapter 8. The Secrets of the Past. Mrs. Whitcomb settled back into her rocking chair, though her hands still clutched the window frame. The candle behind her flickered, casting shadows across the walls like reaching fingers. She closed her eyes briefly and remembered him, her husband, Edward. He had been a curious man, stubborn and clever, with a smile that rarely faltered. But he had walked up that porch one afternoon, long before they married,
intrigued by the same stories that teased every child and stranger who came near Wexler Street. She remembered the way he had laughed as he pushed open the front door, the familiar creak of the hinges greeting him. He had called her later that evening from a neighbor's phone, voice trembling in ways she had never heard. "It's alive, Marion," he had whispered. "Not like we know life. Something inside watches, remembers, waits." Then came the letters. For weeks she received cryptic notes from him, written in the tiny, careful script she recognized, but filled with words that seemed to shift when she tried to read them. He had spoken of rooms that moved, walls that breathed, and the faint hum that pressed at his chest. And then one morning, he did not return. The neighbors said he had left town, taken a sudden job elsewhere, but she knew better. She had visited the house herself later, once, braving the gate and the porch. The interior was immaculate, as if no one had ever set foot there. Yet she felt it, the presence, the hum, the house's awareness. And she had fled, pale, trembling, because she had glimpsed the truth. The house does not forget. Decades later, she still watched. Every night, the window across the street became her eyes into that other world. The house remained the same, waiting, learning, collecting. And tonight, she saw the children. 3 intruders, 3 new presences in a house that had long ago grown too full. Her gaze tightened. She knew she could do nothing but watch, warn, and pray that their curiosity did not become their doom. The hum began again, faint at first, vibrating across the street, into her bones. She shivered. Somewhere deep in the house, the walls pulsed with memory, faces pressed against windows, names carved into plaster, whispers lost in waiting. The candle flickered once more, and she saw it. A shadow at the upstairs window, taller than any of the 3 children, watching, waiting. And Mrs. Whitcomb, her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Not again." But the house does not listen. It does not care. It simply waits. Chapter 9. The Library of Forgotten Tongues. The hallway stretched and curved as they walked, each step heavier than the last, until a door appeared at the end that none of them remembered seeing. It was tall, carved from dark wood, with symbols etched along its frame that seemed to writhe when glanced at from the corner of the eye. Claire's hand hovered over the knob, trembling. "This wasn't here before," she whispered. Marcus, jaw tight, nodded. "Nothing about this place makes sense anymore. Just, let's see." Tom, pale and shaking, muttered, "I think it wants us to see it." The door swung open with a creak that echoed down the hall. Inside, a vast library awaited them. Ceiling lost in shadow, walls lined with shelves that reached impossibly high, books stacked in uneven towers on the floor. The scent of aged paper and something faintly metallic filled the air. Every book's spine shimmered with letters that twisted and writhed, languages that shouldn't exist, words that shifted if you stared too long. Claire ran a trembling hand along a row, and the letters moved beneath her fingers, curling into forms that seemed to whisper. Tom gasped. They're talking. I can hear them." Marcus swallowed hard. "Stop it. Stop imagining things." But the whispers didn't stop. They rose in volume, layered, unintelligible but insistent, threading through the air like fine threads brushing against their ears. Each whisper seemed to tug at a memory, a secret, a fear buried deep inside. Claire stepped deeper into the room. A spiral staircase of black iron twisted upward into the darkness, lined with bookshelves that disappeared into the shadows above. Each step groaned as she ascended, the whispering growing louder, almost urgent. Tom grabbed her arm. "We shouldn't. I have to see," she said, her eyes wide. "We have to know what this is." Marcus hesitated, glancing at the stacked towers of books. One of the spines had his name written across it in curling gold letters. He blinked. The letters disappeared. He swallowed, trying to ignore the tremor in his hands. The whispers coalesced into a faint, almost musical cadence. A single phrase seemed to repeat, though they could not comprehend it. "Come. Learn. Stay." Claire reached for a tome on the topmost shelf. The book slid effortlessly into her hands, despite its height. Its cover was cool to the touch, adorned with symbols that pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of the house. She opened it, and letters rearranged themselves on the pages, forming words she could understand despite never having seen the language before. This isn't just a library. It's alive. It's remembering everything. Tom swallowed audibly. And it remembers us, too. From somewhere deep beneath the floor, a low hum rose, vibrating through the boards. It grew steadily, pulsing like the heartbeat of the house itself. Books rattled on the shelves, pages fluttered, and shadows danced along the walls. Marcus whispered, voice tight, "We need to get out of here." But the staircase ahead shifted as if it had a mind of its own. Steps appeared, disappeared, spiraling higher into darkness, beckoning them upward. The library had opened for them, and it was waiting. The library sets the stage for the next rooms, the nursery, the impossible time distortions, and the house's ultimate tests. Chapter 10. The Nursery. The hallway leading from the library twisted impossibly, as if the house itself had grown limbs overnight. The air became warmer, heavier, tinged with the faintest scent of powder and wax. Claire led the way, Marcus close behind, Tom dragging his feet with every step. At the end of the hall, a door loomed slightly ajar, its frame carved with tiny shapes, infants frozen in mid-gesture, eyes hollow and wide. A faint, rocking creak floated out from the room, rhythmic and steady, like a lullaby caught between sleep and nightmare. Claire swallowed hard. I think it's a nursery." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's not a nursery. It's a trap." Tom shivered. "Why does it feel like it knows us?" Pushing the door open, they stepped inside. The room was immaculate. A small cradle sat in the center, polished wood gleaming as though freshly carved. The mobile above it spun slowly, silver moons and stars twirling without any visible motion. A faint lullaby hummed from nowhere and everywhere at once, soft but insistent, winding around their ears and tugging at their hearts. Claire moved closer to the cradle. Nothing was inside, yet she felt eyes watching her, pressing insistently from the shadows. The walls were lined with shelves of toys, all pristine, all lifelike. Dolls with wide, glassy eyes stared at them, some sitting upright, others propped in impossible poses, their heads tilting to follow the trio as they moved. Tom pointed toward the window. It's too still out there." Marcus's hands clenched. "It doesn't want us to leave. It wants us here, all of us. It doesn't care if we notice it yet. It's patient." A sudden chill ran down Claire's spine. She glanced at the rocking cradle, expecting motion, but it rocked gently, almost of its own accord. Then the hum of the lullaby deepened. The doll's eyes glimmered with a faint, unnatural light. One of them, nearest the window, tilted its head forward, as if listening. Tom gasped, stumbling backward. I don't like it. I can't." A low vibration pulsed through the floor, stronger than before, as if the house itself were breathing. The cradle's soft rocking accelerated subtly. The lullaby wound tighter, threading through the room like a net. The walls seemed to lean in, pressing closer,
listening, remembering. Claire's eyes were drawn to a small mirror on the far wall. At first she saw only themselves, three pale, frightened faces. Then the reflection twisted. Behind them, shadowed figures pressed close, taller than any child, leaning just beyond the light. The mirror's surface rippled faintly, and when she blinked, they were gone. But the sense of being observed remained. Marcus pulled at Claire's arm. "We move, now. Don't stop looking at anything else." Tom followed, voice quivering. "The house remembers us. It knows who we are." And somewhere deep beneath the floors, the pulse of the house quickened, its hum threading around them like invisible fingers. The nursery was a test, a warning, and a trap. And the house was patient.
Chapter 11. Lost Time. The corridor beyond the nursery seemed endless. Every step echoed unnaturally, though no one else appeared to be there. The air had grown heavier, thick with the faint scent of wax, paper, and something darker. Iron. Old and bitter. Claire led the way, her hand brushing against the wall. Each touch left a faint warmth, as though the house remembered her, marking her presence. Behind her, Marcus's eyes darted nervously, catching shadows that moved against logic. Tom stumbled, nearly tripping over a seam in the floor that had not been there moments ago. "This doesn't make sense," Marcus muttered. "We should be back at the stairs by now. We can't have walked this far." Claire frowned, studying the hall. The walls stretched slightly with each step, corridors lengthening impossibly. Doorways appeared and vanished, leaving them to navigate a maze that seemed to know every thought. "I don't like it," Tom whispered, his voice trembling. "It's—" The words caught in his throat. Something shifted behind them, a soft creak, a step that didn't belong to anyone in the house. He turned, but the hall was empty, yet the sound persisted, growing closer. Claire shook her head. "It's trying to confuse us, make us lose track of time." They tried to mark their path. Marcus touched the walls with chalk from a loose pencil he found in his pocket, marking X's and arrows, but each time they turned a corner, the marks seemed to fade, or appear somewhere else entirely. Hours, or was it minutes, slipped by unnoticed. They found rooms repeating themselves. The parlor, the study, even the nursery appeared again, slightly altered as though the house were replaying moments for them to witness. I think we've been walking for hours, or maybe days. I don't know. I don't know anymore." Claire's jaw tightened. "We have to keep moving. We can't stop." The house seemed to respond to their fear. Doors opened more readily, revealing impossible rooms. A hallway that stretched into darkness while the ceiling climbed higher than the eye could see. A mirrored room where their reflections stared at them with expressions not their own. Marcus stumbled into a small alcove and froze. On the wall, names were carved, people who had entered the house long ago. Some were recent, others decades old. And at the bottom, a space with fresh scratches. The letters not fully formed. They recognized their own handwriting. Claire gasped. It's already started to remember us." From somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, a low hum began again, pulsing in a rhythm too steady to be natural. The walls seemed to lean inward, narrowing the corridor. Shadows pressed closer, and the faintest whispers wound through the air, teasing memories, fears, and secrets they had never told anyone. Time had no meaning here. The house was patient. It could wait. It could stretch, fold, and distort reality until its guests forgot what was real. And Marcus, Claire, and Tom, despite every instinct screaming to run, pressed onward, drawn deeper into the labyrinth that had already begun to own them. The house had begun its long game, and they had no idea how to stop it.
Chapter 12. The Door That Won't Stay Closed. The corridor narrowed, curving in ways that made their heads spin. Marcus's hands were pressed to the walls, trying to feel for a familiar seam, a landmark, but each surface was smooth, unyielding, as though it had never been touched. Ahead, a door appeared, simple, wooden, slightly warped. Claire reached for the knob, but it shifted in her grip, as if alive. The door swung open with a groan that vibrated through their bones, revealing another hallway beyond. Marcus exhaled, relief fleeting. Finally, maybe this leads out. But when he turned to glance back, the door had vanished. Where it had stood, only smooth wall remained. Tom's voice quivered. It keeps moving. Every time we try to leave, it... A low, dragging sound slid through the floorboards beneath them. Something deep and deliberate, like fabric scraping across wood. The hum of the house deepened, pulsing against their chests. Claire swallowed hard. We can't stop. If we do, it'll... Before she could finish, the door ahead slammed shut violently. Marcus lunged, hands gripping the frame, but it refused to budge. From the other side came a faint scratching, like nails raking against wood. "I told you, it doesn't want us to leave!" Tom screamed. The walls seemed to lean closer, narrowing the corridor. Shadows pooled unnaturally at the edges of their vision, creeping along the floor, climbing the walls. The house wasn't just guiding them, it was herding them, testing them. Claire's gaze flicked to the next door, slightly ajar, but different from the others. Its surface pulsed faintly, like it had a heartbeat. She knew instinctively this door was the only way forward, yet the only one that could trap them entirely. Marcus shook his head. "I'm not doing it, not this time." But before he could resist, the door swung wider, beckoning. A faint glow slipped through the crack, illuminating shapes in the darkness. Shapes they could not identify, but that seemed to watch. Tom's voice was a trembling whisper. It's waiting for us to choose, and if we don't..." The walls creaked, flexed, and seemed to pulse with impatience. The house was alive in ways they had barely begun to understand. Every hallway, every door, every shadow was part of its will. Claire stepped forward, heart pounding. Marcus hesitated, but the pressure of the narrowing corridor left no choice. Tom followed, shivering, muttering under his breath. "It's learning. It knows who we are." The door closed behind them with a finality that made them all jump. And somewhere deep within the house, the hum shifted, a slow, deliberate vibration that spoke of memory, patience, and appetite. The house was waiting, but this time it was ready to act.
Chapter 13. The library's secrets deepen. The door led them back into a room that resembled the library, yet it was different, older, darker, and alive in a way that made the air vibrate faintly against their skin. Shelves twisted impossibly upward, vanishing into shadows that seemed denser than night. Books lay stacked in chaotic towers on the floor, yet each stack was perfect, deliberate, waiting. Claire stepped forward, her fingers brushing a spine. The letters shimmered, twisting into shapes she almost recognized. Names, dates, fragments of events that had never been told aloud. A chill ran through her. It knows people, all of them. Marcus's gaze swept the room. No, it knows us too. Every time we touch a book, every move we make, it's watching. Tom shivered. And it remembers us from the moment we walked in. The library seemed to respond to their fear. Shadows lengthened along the shelves, converging, pulsing like liquid. A low hum filled the room, building into a resonance that made the floor vibrate under their feet. Claire found a table at the center, a thick tome open and waiting. Its pages were blank, yet when she leaned close, letters appeared, curling into words that described her, her friends,
their voices, their thoughts, events from minutes ago, written in ink that seemed alive. "This is impossible," she whispered. "It knows people. All of them." Marcus's gaze swept the room. "No, no, it knows us too. Every time we touch a book, every move we make, it's watching." Tom shivered. "And it remembers us from the moment we walked in." The library seemed to respond to their fear. Shadows lengthened along the shelves, converging, pulsing like liquid. A low hum filled the room, building into a resonance that made the floor vibrate under their feet. Claire found a table at the center, a thick tome open and waiting. Its pages were blank, yet when she leaned close, letters appeared, curling into words that described her, her friends, their voices, their thoughts, events from minutes ago, written in ink that seemed alive. "This is impossible," she whispered. "It knows what we think." Marcus swallowed hard. "And it's using that against us. Every move we make, every fear, it's feeding on it." From somewhere high above, the spiral staircase groaned. Books shifted slightly, as though a breeze moved through the dark void. But there was no wind. Tom's eyes widened. I think it wants us to climb." Claire shook her head, though her hands had already found the railing. "We have no choice. It's guiding us, showing us." As they ascended, the walls seemed to lean closer. The air thickened. Shadows of figures they had never seen before flickered across the shelves. Some pressed faces to the books. Others stared silently from the corners, observing them with lifeless eyes. Marcus followed reluctantly, voice tight. "Every story, every name in this place, it's all people who came before us, and none of them left." Claire glanced back at Tom. "Then we have to be careful. Every step, every choice matters." The spiral staircase curved higher into darkness, bookshelves stretching impossibly above, whispering their own secrets. The hum became a voice, a soft melodic cadence repeating a phrase they couldn't fully comprehend, yet understood instinctively. "Learn, remember, stay." Tom swallowed, shaking. "It doesn't want us to leave. It never wants anyone to leave." And above them, somewhere in the shadowed heights of the library, the house pulsed with memory, patience, and intent. It had waited long for guests like them, and now it was fully aware.
Chapter 14. The Nursery's Secrets. When they descended from the spiral staircase, the corridor before them had shifted once more. The nursery's door, previously left behind, now loomed larger than it should have, its frame warped as though stretching upward. The soft lullaby that had once been distant now pulsed through the air, insistent and melodic, threading around their ears like invisible fingers. Claire stepped forward cautiously, feeling the floorboards vibrate faintly beneath her feet. Marcus followed, tense, every muscle coiled. Tom lagged behind, eyes wide, hands shaking, whispering, it remembers everything." Inside, the nursery had changed. The cradle rocked slowly, though no breeze stirred the air. Dolls lined the shelves, each positioned differently than before, heads tilted, eyes glinting in faint, unnatural light. Claire noticed that the eyes seemed to follow them, tracking their every movement, and for a moment she swore one had blinked. Tom pointed toward a small mirror on the far wall. It's showing things," he murmured. Claire approached, looking closely. Their reflections stared back, but subtly wrong. Their expressions twisted, faces paler, eyes darker, fear exaggerated beyond reality. And behind them, faint figures shimmered, shapes pressed close to the glass, invisible to direct sight, but undeniable in the reflection. Marcus swallowed hard. It's making us see what it wants us to see, changing reality."
The lullaby rose, weaving through the room in waves. It carried whispers, fragments of names, hints of past guests. Claire caught one clearly: Judith, Daniel, Sarah. Names she had never known, yet their syllables pressed against her memory as if familiar. The cradle tilted gently, rocking faster, and a chill wind, cold and sharp, swept across the floor. The dolls shifted in their positions, heads turning in unison toward the children. A soft scraping sound echoed from beneath the floorboards, like nails dragging slowly across wood. Tom stumbled back, whispering, It wants us to stay forever." Claire's hands trembled as she reached for the door at the far end. It pulsed faintly, throbbing in rhythm with the hum that resonated through the house itself. We keep moving," she said, voice quivering. "We have no choice." Marcus nodded, swallowing his fear. "Every step it guides us. Every room it shows us. It's a test." The nursery seemed to breathe around them. Shadows stretched and recoiled, whispering, twisting. The lullaby pulsed in perfect synchrony with the house's heartbeat. The doll's eyes glimmered as if alive, and somewhere deep below, the house remembered all who had walked these floors before, and the knowledge fed its patience, its hunger, its design. With a collective shudder, they stepped forward into the pulsing doorway, leaving the nursery behind, but carrying its weight with them. The house was patient. It waited, and it was learning.
Chapter 15. The Clock of Endless Hours. The hallway they now walked through felt impossibly long. Every step reverberated unnaturally, the air heavy with the hum of the house. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting subtly, guiding them forward. At the end of the corridor, a grand clock stood alone. Its face was black, hands frozen, but the pendulum swung with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The low hum of the house synchronized with it, pulsing in their chests like a heartbeat. Claire approached first, compelled, though every instinct screamed to stop. It controls time," she whispered. "Every room, every step, every moment, it stretches, bends, traps us." Marcus stepped closer, eyes wide. "That's why we couldn't track how long we'd been here. Days? Hours? It doesn't care. It shapes time itself." Tom trembled, backing up. It wants us to be part of it, to stay, forever." The pendulum swung faster. Shadows twisted along the walls, shapes that resembled past visitors pressed into the edges of perception. The library, the nursery, the corridors, they all bled together, layering moments into one impossible, looping reality. Claire reached for the clock. The hands turned smoothly at her touch, but each tick echoed backward and forward at once. The room seemed to tilt, rotate, stretch. She stumbled, and for an instant she saw herself, older, gaunt, eyes hollow, standing inside the clock's face, trapped in time. Marcus grabbed her arm. "We leave. We run. Now." Tom followed, voice breaking. We can't fight it. We can't escape it. It remembers us. It always does." They sprinted down the hall, the walls bending, the rooms changing, but somehow the exit, the first door they had entered through, appeared before them. The outside night sky shone faintly beyond it, familiar and yet distorted, like a dream they could almost recall. With a collective effort, they pushed through the door. The front porch creaked beneath their feet. The air smelled of asphalt, weeds, and rain. They didn't look back, not until they reached the street. Marcus gasped. We made it." Claire's chest heaved. We survived, somehow." Tom stared at the house. Its shadow stretched unnaturally long in the streetlight. The windows were dark,
yet they seemed to glimmer faintly, reflecting not the street, but the echo of the rooms inside. Mrs. Whitcomb watched from her window across the street, eyes narrowed. She didn't move, didn't speak. She simply waited, as she always had. The house settled, patient, hungry, eternal. And somewhere deep within, the clock ticked on. Time was meaningless here, but the house had remembered the trespassers. It would wait. Always. Always. The three of them didn't speak as they walked down Wexler Street. Every instinct told them the house was still watching, waiting, learning, and they knew deep in their bones that it would never forget them. The house had survived another night, and in the quiet darkness, it waited for the next ones foolish enough to enter.
Did you enjoy that short story? I hope you found it spooky. Now, time for another tale.
Chapter 1. The Waking. You wake in the middle of the night, though you cannot say why. It is not a dream that rouses you. Your mind holds no images, no fragments of half-formed stories. It is not a sound either, at least not one you can remember. Yet your eyes open, wide and alert, as though something has nudged you into awareness. The room is still, too still. The clock beside your bed ticks with a patient rhythm, each second carving through the silence. You stare at the ceiling first, tracing the faint cracks and shadows the moonlight paints. You listen for the ordinary sounds, pipes settling, branches scratching against the window, but none come. It is the silence that unnerves you most, the sense that the entire house is holding its breath. You turn your head, slowly, as though compelled by something unseen, and then you notice it. The corner. At first, you think it's just the dark playing its usual tricks, a shadow stretched long, or the outline of clothes draped carelessly across a chair. But the longer you look, the clearer it becomes. There is someone standing there, a man. He is tall, his outline sharp against the wall. His shoulders are squared, his arms hanging stiffly at his sides. You squint, hoping the features of his face will reveal themselves, but the light refuses to touch him. His face is hidden in darkness, even though the moonlight falls just inches from where it should be. You freeze. Your body tenses beneath the blankets. You want to whisper, to say, "Who's there?" But something inside of you holds the words back. Some instinct, deeper than thought, whispers, "Don't let him know you see him." The clock ticks on. Your breath grows shallow. You stare and stare, but the man does not move. His stillness is worse than any sudden lunge, worse than any sound he might make. Stillness means waiting, watching. Your throat is dry. You swallow hard, the sound loud in the quiet room. Tick, tick, tick. Minutes pass, or maybe it is longer. The man remains. You try to convince yourself you are imagining him, that your eyes, heavy with sleep, are inventing a phantom. You blink, slowly, testing the trick of vision. But when your eyes open again, he is still there. Always there. The silence is unbearable. You whisper, barely a sound. "Hello?" No answer, no shift, nothing but that impossible stillness. A thought coils in your mind, unwelcomed but insistent. If you close your eyes,
he will move. And though exhaustion pulls at your body, your eyes burn from being held open, you dare not shut them. You wait. And you watch. The man in the corner waits too.
Chapter 2. The First Night. You don't dare to close your eyes. The minutes crawl by, measured by the sharp, steady ticks of the clock on your nightstand. At first, you thought the sound was comforting, ordinary, grounding. But now, every tick feels like a countdown, each second falling closer to something inevitable. You whisper again, this time a little louder. Hello? Your voice sounds alien in the silence, thin and trembling. The man in the corner does not stir. His stillness is a kind of answer, though not the kind you want. You reach for the lamp on your nightstand. Your hand trembles as your fingers brush against its cool base. The part of you that still clings to reason says, if I switch it on, the corner will be empty. It's only a shadow. You'll see, and this will end. You flick the switch. The bulb flickers, dim and uncertain. Then the light steadies, spilling golden across the walls. You whip your gaze to the corner. Empty. The man is gone. Your heart slams against your ribs, but relief comes with it, thick and dizzying. Of course, just shadows, just exhaustion. You laugh, but it's a brittle sound, dry and nervous. You're losing it, you whisper to yourself. Just need sleep, that's all. You leave the lamp on. You tell yourself it's because you don't want to trip if you wake again. But the truth sits heavy inside you. You don't trust the dark. Not tonight. Eventually, your eyelids droop. You sink back into the pillow, your body surrendering to fatigue. The lamp's glow warms the room, and your thoughts scatter. Sleep drags you under. But not for long. You wake again hours later, groggy and disoriented. The lamp is off. You frown. In the darkness, you're certain you left it on. You reach out, flick the switch again. Nothing. The bulb is cold, dead. And then you hear it. A sound from the corner. Not movement, not breath. Something else. A low, deliberate scrape, as though nails drag slowly across the wall. Your heart stops. You grip the blanket, fingers clenching tight. You don't want to look. You don't want to see what waits there, but you can't help it. Your eyes find the corner. He's back. The man stands exactly where he was, tall and rigid, only this time, his head is tilted, slightly, as though he knows you're watching. The scraping continues, steady and patient. You realize with horror it is not coming from the wall. It is coming from his hand. His long, pale fingers are tracing the plaster, slow and deliberate, as though carving invisible patterns. Your chest tightens. You want to scream, to leap from the bed and flee the room, but your body refuses. You are pinned, not by weight, but by fear so deep it roots you to the mattress. The clock ticks on, merciless. And then suddenly, the scraping stops. The man lowers his hand. His head tilts further, as if listening for something you cannot hear. The silence deepens. And then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. One step forward. Then another. He is leaving the corner. He is walking toward you.
Chapter 3. The Footsteps. You clutch the blanket to your chest, though you know it offers no protection. The man takes another step, slow and deliberate. The sound of his shoe against the wooden floor is impossibly loud in the silence. You want to scream, to wake the world, but the sound dies in your throat. Your voice feels locked inside you, like something is holding it there. Move, you think desperately. Get up, run, but your body is heavy, pinned by invisible weights. The air itself seems thicker now, every breath dragging like you're inhaling water instead of air. Another step. Closer. Your eyes adjust to the dark just enough to glimpse more of him. His clothes are old, far too old. The fabric hangs in long, uneven folds, torn at the cuffs. His arms sway slightly with each step, but his head remains tilted, as though studying you. You whisper again, hoarse, trembling, "Please, don't." The words vanish into the silence. He doesn't answer. He stops just beyond the foot of your bed. Too close now. The shadow of his shape looms over you, stretching across the blanket. You force yourself to look at his face. For the first time, the shadows peel back enough for you to see. Eyes, sunken and hollow, staring without blinking. Skin that seems stretched too thin, as though it's been drained of color. His mouth doesn't move, but somehow you feel his attention, heavy and unrelenting, like a hand pressing down on your chest. The clock ticks. 1, 2, 3. And then, without warning, he steps back. Just one step. The pressure in the air lightens, and you gasp, sucking in a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. He doesn't move again. He just stands at the foot of your bed, waiting. His head still tilted, his hollow eyes still locked on you. Minutes pass. Your throat aches from holding back sobs. Your vision blurs with tears you don't dare wipe away. Then, impossibly, sleep begins to tug at you again. It makes no sense. You are terrified, your heart thundering, but your heaviness in your body grows unbearable. Your eyes droop, fighting to stay open, but each blink lasts longer, drags deeper. You fight it, whispering, "No, no, no," under your breath, but it's useless. Your body betrays you. Your consciousness slips. The last thing you see before darkness swallows you is the man still standing at the foot of your bed, watching.
Chapter 4. Morning. The sunlight wakes you. For a moment, you lie perfectly still, afraid of what you might see when you open your eyes. The memory of the night clings to you, vivid and sharp. The man in the corner, the footsteps, those hollow eyes. But when you force your eyes open, the room is empty. The corner is just a corner again, dust and shadow. The air is light, ordinary. The clock ticks with the same patient rhythm, but it feels different now, comforting almost. You sit up slowly, scanning the room. The chair is where it should be. Your clothes are piled carelessly on top of it. The floorboards hold no strange marks, no proof of footsteps. And yet, you glance at the wall. There, etched faintly into the plaster, are lines, scratches, thin, deliberate grooves just where the man's hand had dragged during the night. You rise, trembling, and step closer. Your fingertip brushes the marks. They are real. Shallow, but sharp enough to cut if you pressed harder. You stumble back, bile rising in your throat. Your phone lies on the nightstand. You snatch it up, desperate for a voice, for someone else to hear you and tell you you're not losing your mind. Your thumb hovers over your mother's number, your best friend's, even 911. But you stop. What would you say? There was a man in my room, but now he's gone? I think I dreamed him, except he scratched my wall? No one would believe you. You're not even sure you believe yourself. You lower the phone.
the scratches remain. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later. You'll paint over it, forget it. For now, you just need to get through the day. Pretend everything is normal. But a thought follows you, no matter how much you try to push it away.
Chapter 5. The Scratches. You avoid the room for most of the morning. You shower, you dress, you make coffee, and you pretend that life is normal. The sunlight streaming through the windows helps with the lie. It fills the kitchen, paints the counters in warm gold, and for a time you can almost forget the dark figure that stood by your bed. Almost. But every time you glance toward the hallway, your thoughts return to the scratches on your bedroom wall. They pull at you like a splinter under skin, small but impossible to ignore. By noon, you give in. You step back into the room, coffee mug trembling in your hand. The bed is messy, the blanket tangled from your restless night. The corner is still just a corner, but the scratches are there. Pale, thin, deliberate. You trace them with your eyes, following the faint curves. They aren't random. They bend, cross, loop back. They form something. A shape maybe. A symbol. You set your mug down and kneel close, squinting. The marks aren't finished, more like the beginning of something being written. The strokes are too careful, too intentional to be just clawing. Your skin prickles. You grab your phone, snap a picture. The camera doesn't lie. The scratches show up clearly in the photo, stark against the wall. It's proof. Proof you didn't dream it. Proof you weren't imagining things. But instead of relief, the evidence makes you feel worse. The man was real. And if he was real, then where is he now? Your phone buzzes suddenly in your hand, making you jump. A message from your best friend, Clara. Coffee later? I'm dying to escape work. My treat. You stare at the message, then at the scratches. For a moment, you imagine yourself telling her everything, showing her the photo, watching her face pale as she realizes it's not a joke. But then you picture the other outcome, the laughter, the gentle teasing about your overactive imagination. You've always been the one who jumps at scary movies, who hates walking home alone at night. You pocket the phone without replying. You'll handle this yourself, somehow. But the wall waits, patient. The unfinished symbol seems to twist in the light, as though mocking you.
Chapter 6. The Voice. That night, you leave every light in the house on. The hallway, the living room, the kitchen, each bulb burns against the dark. Your bedroom lamp, too, with a fresh bulb screwed in tightly. You double-check the switch, tap the shade to be sure. It glows warmly. This time, you tell yourself, he won't come back. But as the hours stretch on and midnight creeps near, the heaviness in your body grows familiar. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, fighting sleep. Your eyelids twitch, begging to close. The clock ticks. Your head lolls once, twice, and then you hear it. A whisper. At first, you think it's the wind threading through the trees outside. But the sound grows clearer, closer. Look. The word brushes against your ear, too close, as if someone is leaning right beside you. You flinch, sit up sharply, but no one is there. The room is empty. The corner holds only shadow. Your heart races. You clutch the blanket, listening. Look. The whisper comes again, soft and coaxing, drawn out like a lullaby. You glance at the lamp, still burning bright. But the shadows in the corner seem deeper now, thicker somehow, as though light cannot reach them. Look. Your breath trembles. Against all sense, against every instinct screaming don't, you turn your head fully toward the corner. And he is there. The man, standing exactly as before, tall and stiff, his head tilted, his hollow eyes locked on you. The lamplight should banish him, reveal him fully, but no.
He stands untouched by it, his face still half shrouded. The whisper doesn't come from your ears now. It comes from him. His lips do not move, but the word spills into your mind, curling through your thoughts. Look. Your eyes dart to the wall. New scratches have appeared, longer this time, deeper. The symbol is growing, its shape clearer now, circular, with sharp edges crossing through it like a broken wheel. You scramble backward on the bed. Stop, don't. The whisper fills your skull, soft and insistent. Look. And your eyes, helpless, obey.
Chapter 7. Clara. You don't sleep the rest of the night. When the first gray light of dawn filters through the blinds, you're still sitting upright in bed, blanket wrapped tight around your body, staring at the corner. The man is gone. The scratches remain. By morning, exhaustion makes your hands shake. You need someone, anyone, to see what you've seen, to tell you it's real. Or to tell you you've gone mad. Either way, you need another set of eyes. You text Clara. "Coffee, please, now." She replies almost instantly. "On my way, you sound like death. Spill everything when I get there." When she arrives, you almost hug her too tightly. Clara is all warmth and easy laughter, her blonde hair tied messily back, a bag of pastries dangling from one hand. She frowns when she sees your face. "Whoa, you look like you fought a bear in your sleep." "I didn't sleep," you admit. She raises a brow, following you inside. "Okay, what's going on?" You hesitate, then lead her down the hall to your room. The scratches wait on the wall, faint in the morning light, but unmistakable. Clara squints. You did this." "No!" You snatch your phone, shove the photo at her. "Look, it wasn't there before. Then last night I saw, I don't know, him." "Him?" She folds her arms, skeptical. I swallow. The words taste foolish on my tongue. "A man, in the corner, just standing there, watching me. And when I turned the light on, he was gone. But when I woke again, the scratches were there." Silence. Clara studies your face, her usual playfulness gone. "You're serious." "Dead serious." She glances back at the wall, then at the photo, then at you. Finally, she exhales. "Okay, say I believe you. What do you want me to do?" The question stuns you. You hadn't thought that far. All you know is that you don't want to be alone. "Just stay over tonight, please?" Clara sighs, but her lips twitch into a half-smile. "Fine, but if I wake up and some creep is standing in the corner, I'm setting the place on fire." For the first time all day, you almost laugh. Almost. Chapter 8. 2 in the room. That night, you and Clara make a fortress of the bedroom. 2 lamps burn, plus a string of fairy lights Clara insists on plugging in. She calls it vibes, but you know she's just trying to comfort you. The scratches on the wall are ignored, half hidden behind a stack of books she's pushed in front of them. "See?" she says, plopping onto the bed beside you. "No creepy shadows, no corner man, just us, carbs, and terrible TV." You smile weakly, but her confidence is contagious. For a few hours, the room feels almost normal again. You watch mindless sitcom reruns, eat half the pastries, and for the first time in days, you feel your shoulders loosen. Eventually, Clara yawns. "All right, freak, I'm passing out. If your corner boyfriend shows up, wake me." She curls up under the blankets, already half asleep. You leave the lights on. Midnight drags closer. You lie awake, heart thrumming with dread. The corner pulls at your gaze.
Every time your eyes flick toward it, you expect to see him there, but the space remains empty. 1 a.m. passes. 2 a.m. You almost dared to believe it. Maybe Clara's presence is enough to keep him away. Maybe he only comes when you're alone. Then, a sound. The scrape. Your blood runs cold. Slowly, you turn your head. The scratches on the wall deepen right before your eyes. The books Clara stacked slide aside as though pushed by an invisible hand. Pale fingers emerge from the shadows, dragging deliberate lines into the plaster. You slap Clara's arm. "Wake up! Wake up!" She jerks upright, groggy. What is... Her voice dies. Her eyes lock on the corner. The man is there. For the first time, someone else sees him. "Oh my God!" Clara whispers. The man tilts his head, watching her now, and in that moment, you realize something chilling. He doesn't just want you. He wants whoever looks.
Chapter 9. The Denial. Clara doesn't scream. You almost wish she would. The sound might shatter the silence, break the impossible moment hanging in the air. Instead, she stares. Her eyes are wide, her lips trembling, but no sound comes out. She grips your wrist so tightly it hurts. "You see him," you whisper. "Tell me you see him." I... Her voice cracks. "I see him." The admission chills you more than anything else. It's real. All of it. The man doesn't move. He only stands in the corner, his head tilted in that same awful angle, his hollow gaze fixed on Clara now. His pale fingers rest against the wall, hovering just above the scratches. What is he?" Clara asks, her voice thin. "I don't know," you whisper. She squeezes your wrist harder. "Turn on more lights." All the lights are already on. As if to mock you, one of the fairy bulbs flickers and dies. Then another. The room dims, shadows stretching. "No, no, no!" Clara mutters, fumbling for her phone. She swipes at the screen, shining the flashlight toward the corner. The beam lands on the man. For a split second, his face is revealed more clearly than ever before. You see the thin, bloodless skin stretched across sharp bones, the hollow sockets that should hold eyes but instead contain darkness deeper than the night itself. His lips are sewn shut with fine black thread. Clara gasps, dropping the phone. The flashlight beam tumbles across the floor, sputtering out. When you look back at the corner, the man is gone. The wall is bare. Only the scratches remain. Chapter 10. The Research. Morning comes, though you barely sleep. Clara doesn't either. She paces the kitchen with a cup of untouched coffee, muttering to herself. "I saw him. I know I saw him. He was there." "I told you," you whisper. She stops pacing, finally looking at you. "Okay, so it's real. He's real. Then what the hell is he?" You rub your face, exhaustion grinding into your bones. "A ghost? A demon? I don't know." Clara slams her coffee cup down. "Well, we're not just gonna sit here waiting for him to show up again." She grabs her laptop, drops it on the table, and starts typing. Her fingers fly across the keys. "We need answers. Anything about, I don't know, shadow men, sleep paralysis demons, haunted houses, symbols carved into walls." You lean over her shoulder, watching the flood of search results fill the screen. Dozens of articles appear. Paranormal forums, grainy photos, stories of the Watcher, the Dark Man, the Corner Thing. None are identical, but all echo pieces of what you've seen. A man who comes at night, who stands in corners, who waits for you to notice him. And the symbol. Always the symbol. Over and over,
crude sketches of the same shape appear on different sites. A circle broken by jagged lines, sometimes called the wheel, sometimes the veil. Accounts vary, but one theme repeats. Once the symbol is complete, he doesn't just watch, he takes. You shudder. Takes what? Clara scrolls, silent. Finally, she whispers, "People." The word hangs heavy between you. You glance toward the hallway, toward the scratches on your bedroom wall. The symbol is not finished yet, but it will be.
Chapter 11. The Warning. Clara insists on staying another night. "This isn't just your problem anymore," she says, arms folded tight. "I saw him. He looked at me. Whatever this thing is, it's after both of us now." You want to argue, to tell her to leave before it's too late, but selfishness roots your tongue. The idea of another night alone with him is unbearable. So, you nod. That evening, the two of you drag a mattress into the living room, as far from the scratched wall as possible. Clara sets up her laptop again, playing music to keep the silence at bay. You order food you don't touch. By midnight, exhaustion drapes over both of you. Clara dozes first, curled in a blanket. You lie awake, eyes on the far corner of the living room. It's empty. Until it isn't. He stands there, tall, still, head tilted, always tilted. Your body stiffens. You whisper, barely a breath, "Clara!" She stirs, groggy. "What?" "Don't look." But she does, and when her gaze meets the corner, the whisper returns, not just in your head now, but echoing faintly through the room. "Look." The lamp on the end table flickers once, twice, goes dark. The man lifts his hand, dragging fingers along the wall. The scratches are there instantly, as if burned into the plaster. More lines, more of the broken circle. Clara scrambles upright, clutching your arm. "He's finishing it," she gasps. You don't answer, because even as terror floods your chest, you know she's right. The symbol is almost half complete now. And with each line, you feel it, not just fear, but pressure, as though the walls are leaning in, the air thinning, the house itself bending towards something inevitable. "Look." The whisper gnaws at your skull. Clara clamps her hands over her ears, rocking back and forth. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" And then, just as it began, the man vanishes. The light flickers back to life. The room is empty again. But the scratches remain. Chapter 12. The Decision. Morning finds you both ragged. Clara's hands shake as she scrolls her laptop. Her face is pale, lips chapped. "We can't stay here." "Where would we go?" you mutter. "A hotel. Anywhere." You glance toward the living room wall. What if he follows? The question hangs between you. Neither of you wants to say it, but you both know he's not tied to the house. He's tied to you. Clara snaps the laptop shut. "Then we fight back." You stare at her. "How?" "Research. Rituals. Whatever it takes." Her eyes burn with determination, but you see the fear beneath it. He wants that symbol finished, right? Then we stop him before he does. It sounds impossible, but the alternative is worse. By noon, you're both buried in old forums, scanned PDFs of forgotten folklore, desperate whispers from strangers who claim to have seen the same thing. Most are nonsense, but patterns emerge. Salt lines, mirrors, burned offerings, words meant to banish. One post catches Clara's eye. A grainy photo shows the broken circle symbol carved into stone. Beneath it, a scrawl of text. "The Watcher writes to open the way. Stop his hand, or the door is made." "Open the way?" Clara murmurs. The phrase sinks into you like ice. A door. To where? To what?
That night, you scatter salt across the threshold of every door, every window. Clara sets mirrors at angles in each corner, facing outward. She mutters words she found online, prayers stitched together from half a dozen sources. When you crawl into bed, surrounded by light and salt and mirrors, you almost believe you've done enough. But in your chest, dread whispers otherwise. The watcher is patient, the symbol waits, and the night is coming.
Chapter 13. Salt and Mirrors. The house smells faintly of salt. Every windowsill, every doorway, every crack in the floor has been lined. You and Clara step carefully, mindful not to disturb the powder. Feels like we're trying to trap a cockroach, Clara mutters, though her voice wavers. The mirrors gleam in the corners, propped at angles, catching reflections of reflections. They make the rooms look larger than they are, fragmented and strange. Wherever you turn, you see yourself watching yourself, endless pairs of eyes. Clara insists it will help. If he thrives on shadows, mirrors scatter them. They confuse him. Salt seals him out. You nod, but doubt clings to you. The watcher has never been stopped by locked doors or bright lights. Why should salt be any different? Still, that night, you both feel a sliver of hope. You fall asleep in the living room, backs pressed together, lamps blazing. For the first time in days, you dream. But the dream is wrong. You're standing in your bedroom. The corners are darker than they should be, shadows pooling like spilled ink. The unfinished symbol glows faintly on the wall, the lines pulsing like veins. You hear footsteps behind you. You don't turn. You don't need to. Look! When you wake, your throat aches from screaming. Beside you, Clara gasps awake at the same time. Her eyes are wide, her face pale. I saw him, she whispers. In my dream, he was inside. You both stare at the salt lines. They are undisturbed, pristine. The mirrors stand untouched, the lamps glow steadily. And yet, somehow, he found a way in.
Chapter 14. The Second Symbol. The next morning, Clara scours the internet like a woman possessed. Salt and mirrors didn't work. Okay, fine. We'll try something else. Fire, iron, holy water. I don't care. You pace behind her, restless. The house feels smaller every hour. The corners darker, the air heavier. Then Clara freezes. Oh God! You lean over her shoulder. On the laptop screen is another forum post, buried deep in an archive. The attached image makes your stomach lurch. It's the same broken circle symbol, but not carved into a wall, not etched into wood, burned into flesh. A photograph of an arm, pale and thin, with the blackened lines seared deep. The caption beneath it reads, "Once he marks you, you are his." Your hand shakes as you pull back your sleeve. Your skin looks normal, untouched, but when Clara pushes back her own sleeve, a faint line, thin and gray, runs across her forearm. It curves, exactly like the scratches on the wall. "No!" Clara whispers. She scratches at it desperately, as though she could erase it. The mark does not fade. You grab her wrist. "Stop! You'll hurt yourself." Her breath shudders. He's not just finishing it on the wall. He's finishing it on us. The realization crashes down like ice. The scratches in the plaster aren't the only symbol. You are the other. And once both are complete, the door opens.
Chapter 15. The Way Opens. Night falls like a suffocating blanket. You and Clara sit on the living room floor, surrounded by salt, mirrors, and candles that flicker despite the absence of wind. The faint lines on her arm and yours pulse almost imperceptibly, like the symbol itself is alive. Neither of you speaks. The air is heavy, thick with anticipation. Then it comes, the whisper. Soft, insistent, curling around your skull. Look. You look at Clara. Her eyes are wide, shimmering with fear and tears. She wants to look away, but her body trembles as if some invisible force is drawing her gaze toward the corner. You try to push her back, to break the connection, but the power holding you both is stronger than any salt, stronger than mirrors, stronger than your combined will. The shadow in the corner begins to take shape. Taller, wider, head tilted, fingers dragging through the air, etching lines in invisible space that echo the symbol's design. Your arms ache as the lines sear into your skin. Clara cries out as the mark on her forearm deepens, burning faintly. "Stop it!" you scream, your voice raw, trembling. "It's not yours to finish." The watcher tilts his head. No face, only hollow eyes. No lips, yet the whisper fills the room in unison. Look. Your eyes obey, no matter how hard you fight. The room spins. Light bends unnaturally. Shadows twist, pooling into angles that shouldn't exist. You feel the walls stretch, the ceiling press down. The last line of the symbol is drawn, on the plaster, on your skin, in the air itself. And the world shudders. The watcher steps forward. You feel his presence inside your mind, inside your bones. The way is opening. Clara screams beside you. You reach for her, but it is too late. The last thing you see before darkness swallows you is the man's hollow gaze, closer than ever, staring through the unfinished boundaries of your world. And the whispers continue. Look. The house is silent once more, save for the faint, impossible ticking of a clock that should not exist. The corner waits, always waiting.